Hello YouTube, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be showing you how to change these controllers into these controllers. All you have to do is get these 3D printed. What happens is these corners right here get really bad when you're holding the device upside down or like straight down like this, because this corner starts to dig into your palm really bad. So what they've done with these grips is they've rounded that corner out. And I can say from experience, it makes an absolute world of difference. You go from being tired in 30 minutes to an hour passing by without you even realizing. So it absolutely makes a world of difference. Another thing that it does is it removes this button right here. And it also removes the FPS mode. So yeah, this is typically a nuisance in controller mode, but it is necessary for FPS mode. So I assume that that's why they didn't really care about removing this FPS mode. So they did. But one thing that they didn't do is remove this button, and I kind of wish they did, because now with the mod, this is the only thing that bothers. And I know it's not like the same side of the grip, but I kind of wish they had made a back grip that closes up this button. All right, so what do you absolutely need in order to do this job? Well, you need your controllers, and these are actually spares, so I'm going to put these to the side and grab the ones that I'm going to be modifying. I've already opened up these multiple times, and I've even broken some tabs on the inside, so I have no qualms with modifying these and doing it over and over, especially because I have those spares. We need a small screwdriver with 2 different bits, and those bits are going to be pH1 and either pH0 or pH00. You might want to have both on hand just so that you can test them with your particular controller, because some bits are slightly different than others, and because of that, the size changes. And then you also need your plastic spudger. You do need a pointy end, and then optionally, we have tweezers or very small pliers, whatever you can find. And we have a razor. It looks like a pen, but it's actually a razor. This is in case you need to do any small modifications to the casing while you're in there. For the most part, if you're just using the print, you should be fine. I had the person who's 3D printing my stuff modify my stuff a little bit, so I did have to make a couple of cuts here and there. This is going to be everything. Let's go ahead and get on into the modification. All right, so the first thing you're going to want to do is take your controllers and pop the thumbsticks off and put those to the side. And then we're going to work on the trackpad side first because it's slightly more difficult. So let's go ahead and put the D-pad side away. All right, so the first thing you're going to want to do on your trackpad side is remove this adhesive sticker. Another optional tool you could use is a heat gun. That's actually how I got this off, and that's the best way to ensure that your adhesive stays connected to the sticker. That way you can reuse it. I don't know if I ever actually plan on reusing it because you don't use it on the modded piece. So I don't think you need the heat gun, especially if you don't plan on reversing this modification. But if you do plan on reversing the modification, you might want to take this off with a heat gun so you can replace it. Then you have your 4 screws. So you're going to have one there, one there, one there, and one there. And those are all going to be either your 00 or your 0. Once those screws are removed, you have a clip up here that you can just kind of press in, and another clip right here that is the same thing. But you have to be careful with this scroll wheel. So you might want to do this side first. So you're going to press in, and I actually broke mine the first time that I did it. So yeah, that's why you don't see the clip there. But you do that side first, and then this side should be pretty easy to just kind of wiggle out, and that's what the clip looks like. You can go ahead and put that to the side. And as I'm putting things to the side, I like to put them in order of the way that I took them out, so that when I'm putting things back together, I know exactly what order to put them back together in. All right, so on the inside, the first thing we're going to do is remove a few cables. And that's going to be 3 cables. We have the battery, the vibration motor, and the trackpad, which is this ribbon right here. So go ahead and remove those. So these 2 cables can be kind of pulled directly out by prying on the corners here. For this ribbon cable, you have this connector right here, which you actually have to pull out a bit. So you're going to basically pry it up, being careful not to break it. So be gentle with all of these connectors. And then when it's pulled up and you can kind of see some space in there, then the ribbon cable just slips out. Once that's done, we're going to go ahead and get the trigger. So the trigger has 1 screw right here, and that's going to be a PH1. And as you're doing this, you kind of want to push in so that you don't strip the screw, but then also so that you don't break the trigger, you want to push from the other side with your finger. That way you're evening out the pressure and not putting it all on the plastic. All right, so once that screw is out, we're gonna basically press the trigger all the way down and then pull it up and out. And then you'll see as you pull out that there's kind of 2 little slits right there on the side of the trigger. If you look at the mechanism itself, it has the little groove right there that it corresponds with. So this groove right here is what that tracks onto. So I'll go ahead and put these to the side together. So next we have 3 screws that are going to hold the motherboard to the front of the case. It's going to be this one right here, this one right here, and this one inside of the trigger. It's basically right down there. I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, it's right down there. And those are all also going to be PH1. All right, and once you have those 3 screws out, the motherboard is going to start to come loose. So at this point, you just kind of want to take the motherboard out, but you want to be careful not to yank it apart because there's a ribbon cable down here that's still connected. So let's go ahead and unclip that. And to do that, you're basically just going to take this black tab right here and you're going to flip it up. There you go. And then this kind of lifts up and out. So now the only thing connected still is going to be your FPS mode. So, and you might get buttons start to spill out now. So be careful. Make sure you collect everything that spills out. It will be pretty obvious where everything goes if you're watching this video, but in order to keep everything together and make sure that you have everything, make sure that you do collect everything that falls. So the only thing left is going to be this FPS mode module right here. So what we're going to do is there is 1 clip right there and 1 clip right there. All you really have to do is kind of pull them out and they'll just kind of snap out. And then you have your motherboard free. So the first thing we're going to do is actually disconnect this piece because we're going to do something to it real quick. So we just pop that up and then the ribbon cable comes up and out. So put that to the side for a second. On this module, you're going to have to remove the plastic piece because on the new modified case, the plastic piece actually gets in the way of you closing the casing. So what we're going to do is there's 4 clips right here on the side. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I actually broke my 4th one. That's why you don't see it there. But it doesn't matter to me. So yeah, just remove those clips and remove this board out of here. All right, once the board is out of there, you want to make sure you keep track of everything and keep it together and put it to the side for future reference, just in case you ever want to reverse the mod. And then you're going to take this and put it to the side. You are going to be reconnecting it as you put together the modded case. All right, for now, we're going to put this motherboard to the side because we're not going to need it, just for a couple seconds. On this front piece, you're going to have your trackpad. You're going to have this LED ring, and then you're going to have your two bumpers. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the bumpers. If your right bumper is loose by now, which it probably is just because you've been messing with it, you should be able to get this button out pretty easily. It just kind of comes up and diagonally out like that. And then the bumper is kind of the same thing. Careful with the spring on it. There's a little bump right here that this piece rests in. That's going to be what's holding it in. So you kind of want to pull it up and out of there. This piece can actually be put away because you're not going to be using it in the modded case. Now we're going to be removing the vibration motor, and it's just stuck there with some adhesive. So you can just kind of pry under it. Be careful not to break the cables. What I would do is I would use the pointy tip of the plastic spudger. Next, we're going to remove our trackpad. And basically what you want to do is you want to just take a little bit of alcohol and spray it into these cracks and wait like 5 minutes. And then once that's done, you're going to go in the back here and you're going to take your plastic spudger and you're going to push in a non-sensitive area on the back of the trackpad. And eventually it'll pop right out. So you can see mine, some of the adhesive came off with it, but not all of it. And that's fine with me because it still works. And if it didn't, I would just replace it with some very thin double-sided tape. So now the last thing on this piece is going to be the LED module. So to take that off, you're just going to use your 0 or 00, and you're going to unscrew these two screws. And that comes up and out. All right, so now we have our bare front shell, and we're actually not going to need that anymore. So we'll be putting that to the side along with the other stuff that we're not going to need anymore. Make sure that you were collecting all of the loose pieces that were falling out. For example, this piece and the spring. Be very careful to collect these from this spot right here. They are loose and they can fall out very easily, so make sure you don't lose them. All right, now we're going to grab our mod piece, and we're essentially just going to do everything the same way, but backwards. The way that this mod piece comes, it comes with this actually covered, but it has, I don't know, it's weird. It has it so like it's already stenciled out so that you can somewhat easily get in there with like a metal spudger and kind of pry it out, or like even with like something like this might even be able to do it. Just kind of pry it out from the corners. And you'll see that if you do the 3D printing. But you might also need a metal spudger or like a small flathead screwdriver or a butter knife or something like that. Any of those things should be able to get this piece out. So let's go ahead and start assembling this piece. The first thing we're going to do is put in the trackpad, just because that's the easiest. We're just going to put the cable through, and then I'm going to just push it so that the adhesive sticks a little bit. And there you go. Next thing you want to do is your LED module. So you're going to put that on the same way that it came off. And then you're going to take the two screws and you're going to screw them in. Once that's connected, the next thing we're going to put back is going to be our buttons. So just go ahead and look at them. What I do is I look at them like regular, and then I just turn them around and then place them in. And X is a bit of a tricky one because you can put it in wrong. So make sure that you're looking at it from the other side once you actually place it in. All right, and all my buttons look good. Then I'll go ahead and put the, whatever this button is called, the start, select, whatever button. That slides right in. And then I'll put my rubber. Your rubber might still be on this side because it just didn't fall off, but mine fell off. So I will have to line it up right here with this little notch right here. Next thing I'm going to put back is my vibration motor. And you want the wire to be kind of facing diagonally upwards, just because that's where the plug will be. And you want to press that down so that the adhesive can stick. All right, next we're going to put the trigger. And as you can see here, there's no space for the second trigger. It's just enough space for this trigger, which I actually really like because it eliminates one annoyance of this controller. So you want to make sure that your spring is in a good spot, and you want to make sure that the bumper is going to be in both notches. All right, final thing before we start connecting the motherboard is we want to just place this in the case where it's going to go. And for me, I actually had to add a bit of double-sided tape to this to make it stable. So I'm gonna go ahead and add that. It's fine without the double-sided tape, but the controller just doesn't lock into the system, which kind of bothers me sometimes. With these two pieces of tape, it still doesn't lock, but it holds so firmly that you have to you really have to try to remove the controllers, meaning I won't remove them accidentally. All right, I've added my two little pieces of tape. I'm gonna go ahead and affix this to the case, making sure that the spring goes over the notch. All right, once it's placed in there, just leave it there, and we're gonna move on to the motherboard. So the first thing we're gonna do with the motherboard is we're gonna connect this ribbon cable right here in this slot right here. So what I like to do is put them side by side and then kind of connect it like this. So you want to make sure the tab is up all the way. Lay it in and then down. And then close the plug. And then at that point, you can turn the motherboard around. Make sure your two plugs are coming up over the motherboard and lay it down in place. It's not going to go down all the way at first. You can see it's kind of held up right there. And the reason it's like that is because this piece right here, this little edge, this little notch has to come over this notch right here. So as you're putting it in, what you want to do is you kind of want to hold it up for a second, maneuver the button, so that it stays over. Now at this point, once this is correct, you should be able to kind of jimmy it down if you have it in the correct spot and there's nothing blocking. That's pretty much in there. Next thing to do is screw back in our 3 motherboard screws. All right, so I had this cable on this side of this standoff. So I had to actually remove this just a little bit just to route this cable back through. But we're back. We did it. Let's get back to business. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to screw in your 3 screws for the motherboard. And again, that's your PH1. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to replace our trigger. So you want to put them in the slits. And we're looking good. All right, once your trigger is in, give it a quick test. Make sure your bumper is in the right place and that it clicks from everywhere. And now we're gonna do all of the cables: battery, vibration, trackpad. Now this is the cable that's really, that you really need the tweezers for, because putting this in without closing it at the same time is a real challenge. So you want to make sure that the plug is open, and once it's open, you can fit the cable in. This is probably the most challenging cable here, and you'll know it's in when you know you can only see just a sliver of the metal right there. Then you want to do your other 2 cables. All right, we're almost done with the trackpad side. Next, we're going to take the FPS mode module and we're going to plug it in. We're just going to lift up this little tab, put the cable in there. So now it should be hanging kind of like this. what we're going to do is we're going to flip it over. And we're just going to rest it in the empty space right there. And that's where it's going to live. It doesn't rattle or anything. It's held pretty tight by the case. So it's not going to bother us aesthetically in any way. And also it's not going to mess us up because it's always going to be in controller mode. All right, from here, we're done messing with the inside. All we're going to do is we're going to go scroll wheel side first. And we're going to put this back casing back on the controller. Make sure you pay attention to where everything is, and it should come together relatively well. So now once that back case is on, we're going to go ahead and screw back in the 4 00 or 0 screws. There, and there. All right, once you have that screwed, go ahead and do a spot check. Make sure everything is together well. You will have this here, and it'll be open to the inside. And the person who created this kit actually created this piece, which I assume goes here because it fits. But also, it doesn't like lock in any way. It just kind of fits there, like really tightly. But if you like do that, it'll fall out. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some double-sided tape right here on the wings. And then I'll affix this here to cover up that hole. Once everything looks good, you can go ahead and put your thumbstick back on. And test all your buttons. Make sure they feel okay. Make sure they all click. Make sure the scroll wheel scrolls. And you have your trackpad side of controller. All right, now let's work on D-pad side. And a lot of this is actually going to be basically the same. The first thing we're going to do is going to be removing these 4 screws. And these are going to be 0 or 00, just like the other side. All right, once those 4 screws are out, put them to the side. And let's open up the shell. And it's going to be the same thing as the other side. It's going to have 1 clip on this side and 1 clip on this side. And there's your clip on that side. And I broke the one on this side, So for this side, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to disconnect the battery and the vibration motor. All right, once that's done, we're going to remove the trigger. It's going to be this screw again. And again, that's a PH1. And once we remove the screw, press it in and pull it out, just like the other one. Next thing we're going to do is remove the 2 screws here. Again, PH1. Be very careful with this screw right here because it's next to this switch for this underside button. So be careful not to damage that switch. And we have 1 more screw right up here. All right, once those motherboard screws are loose, the next thing to do is to loosen this left bumper. So basically you have a clip right here that's holding the bumper in. You want to kind of pull that in while you pull the bumper out. And be careful not to use too much pressure because you don't want to bend it. And then that way it won't be holding the bumper when you put it back. You want to just make sure that you kind of release it using its mechanism. Once that bumper is loose, we can start to pull the motherboard away from the front case. Now don't yank it because again on this side we have our LED light, which needs to be disconnected. And once that's disconnected, your motherboard should be free. Now at this point, we're going to start doing the same thing that we did on the other side and transfer over all of these parts onto the new modded piece. All right, so here we have it. And actually, instead of the D-pad that comes with the device, I'm going to be adding this D-pad mod, which allows you to use Xbox Elite controller D-pads. So I'm going to be adding this instead of the regular D-pad. And then we're going to transfer over this LED module again using the screwdriver with the 0 or 00s. We'll transfer over the vibration motor and the bumper. All right, next we're going to transfer the 3 menu buttons. So this one, and this one. All right, and which slot you put them in doesn't really matter because they're all the same size. And I'm going to take the old D-pad and leave it inside of the old casing. And we are done with this casing, so I will put it to the side. Make sure you grab this piece from right here. Most likely it'll fall out at some point while you're working on the controller. keep that in mind. All right, so we have everything on this part of the controller except for this guy. So I'm going to go ahead and put that there along with the spring. Keeping in mind that we are going to have to fiddle with it to get it into the case again. Next, we're going to take our motherboard and we're going to plug in the LED cable. All right, once that's in, we can basically close the motherboard and the shell, keeping in mind that we want to keep this cable outside. Also keeping in mind that this piece needs to come up above the little tab right there. Also keeping in mind that the trigger needs to be loose, like this. You could even just keep the trigger off. At this point, once you have it lined up and you have the locking mechanism in the right place, now you can screw in your 3 motherboard screws. Again, those are PH1. Once that's screwed in, we're gonna lock in our bumper. So basically you're gonna take this tab again and you're gonna kind of force it in with the bumper. And then at that point, you should feel your bumper kind of click into place, and now it should be working. Next, we're gonna do our trigger. Same thing as the other side. You wanna line up the 2 tabs right there at the top with the 2 kind of tabs right there. And then once that's in and lined up, you should be able to feel it feel like a regular trigger again. We'll put our screw back in. All right, once your trigger's back on, go ahead and check everything else one more time. Make sure everything is good, in good condition, and in the right place. And then we're gonna plug in our 2 cables right here. All right, once those are plugged in, we should be good to put the back portion of the controller back onto the controller. And once you have it flushed together like that, you wanna go ahead and put your 4 screws in. Remember, these are 00 or 0. All right, once that's back together, last thing we're gonna do is place this joystick on. And we're done. Now, the guy who made this mod, he includes this little plastic piece file in the 3D printer. But I only got one because I just didn't know what it was. And honestly, I don't think that it looks that much worse without it. It probably does on video, but you know, while you're actually holding the device, you can't really tell the difference. But I am asking him to make one more of these, so that I can cover up the other side as well. So once you're done with that, you want to go ahead and connect your controllers. And they might not click into place just because the lock doesn't have the same structure that it does on the original controller. The 3D printed piece just isn't perfect. But it should hold well enough that you're not too worried about it falling out of your hands or like coming out accidentally or anything like that. Go ahead and go into Legion space. And then from here, go over to controllers, controller calibration. Now you want to calibrate your left stick. Now you want to go over to the right stick, go ahead and test it. And then you want to go all the way over to the right to more, test input, and just follow what it says. All right. And the only button that you shouldn't be able to test is going to be the one that's on the right, because that button is no longer there. And there is your guide for the best controller mod that you can do with your Lenovo Legion Go right now. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know if any of you guys followed along and actually did the mod. Let me know if you guys saw significant improvement. I know for sure that I did. Like it's night and day difference. The only negative that I can say is you lose the mouse mode, which isn't necessarily that bad, but also it makes it easier to kind of accidentally touch the touchpad. So I do find myself actually turning it on now when before I wouldn't. So that is a negative, but everything else I can say works great. All the buttons work great. This button can't really be clicked all the way from the side, but everywhere else it's fine, and I don't find myself clicking like that anyways, so no problem. This one is just fine everywhere. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about the mod and get to gaming. Peace.